it's very different because I've also seen two different aspects of people, two different sides of people. I've seen the animalistic side of someone, that kills at will, kills children and stuff like that. I mean, I've seen that. I've been in war zones, versus that of a CEO or a girlfriend or, negotiating with your domestic, which is often somewhere in the middle, So I've dealt on the extremes in terms of negotiating, and I've seen the different personalities out there. And I think it's given me an edge, but it's also because I've seen the animalistic side that I appreciate what I have when I'm negotiating on the business side, because it's just so much easier than trying to do that.
I'm Talana Simpson, and this is Let's Talk Communication, today with Denis Fourie. Whether you're in the corporate world, running your own business, a parent, or actually in any kind of relationship, there's going to come a time when you need to negotiate something and work through a conflict. And to grow your network is key to being successful in your professional life and in business. Denis Fourie shares with us what he learned from selling his business called The Lobbyist, which he built on his networking ability, and also from the time he spent negotiating with hostages and as an entrepreneur.
Good. Denis, thanks again for doing another show. I know we've just spoken on my Let's Talk Possibility show, so in the show notes I'll put for anyone to go listen to that to hear a lot about entrepreneurship and
thank you.
What's going on in that. But I really was excited to speak to you because of your extensive knowledge with entrepreneurs and business. You've developed some really interesting and I think quite niche kind of skills or important skills for business.
Yeah.
Especially in terms of communicating. So thank you for agreeing to come and share some of those
Thanks
ideas.
Thanks for the invite.
And share. So maybe just to put in context then before we get into some of those communicating skills, and that is maybe just to give a sense of, again, your history, your past, and how you got to be, where you are today. So just briefly.
Yeah, I think just briefly, I've been an entrepreneur for almost 3 decades, starting at 10 years old, I've started a lot of businesses and I failed at most of them, it's been a tough learning experience for me and that, but I've been fortunate that I've learned, through a lot of failures and that, and I've been quite successful in my businesses. So, I've been through the ropes. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And one of those businesses has been The Lobbyist. So I don't know if you can tell us a little bit about that, because that for me was one of the key skills that business highlighted was networking.
Yes.
Which I want to ask you about. So maybe just what is The Lobbyist?
Well, The Lobbyist, I don't have the business, I sold the business, as you know. It was really focused around connecting people, so if it was connecting high profile individuals to do business, essentially. And initially when I started the thing, I was like, I tried to start The Lobbyist in South Africa. Now, it was not lobbyist in the traditional definition of the term as the Americans would define it, which is someone working on behalf of a company, usually it's a legal firm and that, lobbying to change policies or get certain deals from government. Okay. What I said is, well, can't we turn that on its head and say, well, what if I want to introduce an individual to an individual? Or what about an individual to a business, or business to individual, or individual to government, etc.? We follow all three of those different categories and do connections all throughout, and facilitate deals. And what if we took a percentage of each deal that we managed to conclude through that? So The Lobbyist was born from that. And I initially started in South Africa, and it just was not working. And I was fortunate that I got an opportunity to go do some business in Russia and in Eastern Europe. And that just grew my business exponentially, and I started getting introduced to really high profile individuals and that. And I started facilitating deals, and it was everything from facilitating commodity trade deals to selling castles to arranging, a pink Bugatti with a blue stripe, for a Thai general. It was selling businesses, buying mines. It didn't matter what it was. We were the guys who went out there, found the opportunities, went to these people and said, well, here's an opportunity for you. This is on your interest list. Can we facilitate this thing for you? And we would not only do the introduction, but we'd facilitate the entire deal until conclusion. So it wasn't just, here's an introduction for you, it was actually facilitating the entire deal as well. And it's ranged everything from investments, trade, all the way through to, just standard purchases, marketing products, etc. But on a massive scale, okay? Bearing in mind our smallest deals started at about $10 million. So they were big deals. They weren't, 10,000 Rand deals. But it took a while to obviously get into that. And I learned a lot throughout the lobbyists, because now dealing in the international market and having access to these high-profile individuals and that, also helped me in terms of business, in terms of understanding the limitations that I had set myself as a South Africa, being in South Africa, versus there being no limitations overseas, really grew me, and that's really what took me to success.
And when you say that the limitations as a South African, was that you mean
it's
your mindset? It's
a mindset thing. It's like, well, if I can make R1 million, how cool would that be, Those guys aren't thinking in those terms. They're thinking $10 million, $100 million. How do we go to $1 billion company? That's their goals. I mean, we set our goals way too low, as entrepreneurs in South Africa. We don't realize the possibilities that are really out there. And because our mindset is set so narrow, we never grow to our full potential. Once you remove those barriers, and that suddenly the world of opportunity opens up for you, And when opportunities open up and you've got the passion and commitment and drive to follow that through with obviously there's skills attached to that, money and success comes automatically. It just follows you.
So how do you remove then those limitations? Because they're obviously well grooved in and conditioned within.
It's watching and following what other people are doing, that are dealing on the international market scale. For me, that was it. It was dealing with these people on a day-to-day basis, sitting in discussions, having them as mentors, having overseas mentors in with me and saying, well, this is how, Dennis, why are you doing this? Why aren't you doing this? Have you tried this and that? And, that opened up everything, just removed everything, And also, when you see the success that certain people have achieved, suddenly it's like, well, how did you achieve that? Well, it's by removing those barriers. I didn't think small. It was constantly thinking big.
But you
if your dreams, as like
yourself.
Richard Branson says, if your dreams aren't scaring you, they're not big enough. So.
Okay, so but here it's about exposing yourself outside of your comfort zone.
Yes.
Outside of what is immediately around.
So you got your comfort zone, and then you got, this is where shit happens. You got to get over there. Okay, and then you got to go completely outside of the norm. You got to put yourself in a position where you're forced to learn. It's like being thrown into a pool when you can't swim. How fast can you learn to swim? This is like Richard Branson again. He says, when opportunity comes, worry about how you're going to do it later. Get the opportunity.
Take it.
Take it. Don't miss out on it. Too often we're saying, well, let me first upskill. As South Africans, the mindset is, wait, I first need to upskill before I can take this opportunity. Why? You can find someone who can help you. You can outsource it if you need to. I mean, the options available there are dozens of options available to you. So why are you limiting yourself? Because if you have to wait till you're completely upskilled in that opportunity is going to be gone. And there's no guarantee that another opportunity is going to come.
Or definitely not one like that.
No, well, not one like that one, definitely. Yeah. So take that. And what I did when I had this opportunity to do this deal overseas and it was really by chance and really by luck getting the deal, I took it. I had no idea how to do it. I can tell you now, I had no idea how to do it at all. It was facilitating a deal, it was doing project management on a massive scale regarding oil and stuff like that. I've never even been involved in the oil industry, but what I did is I brought in people, that could help me. And I said, well, you got experience in this. This. Project management. Can you help me with this? And I brought in key people who helped me throughout the project.
And so that's what I wanted to ask you, because a lot of my clients ask me, and they come to develop their networking skills. We're told that you must, in business, whether it's a corporate career or an entrepreneurial career, you need to have a network. So if you were able to then call in people, what is networking to you? That's this, because this term is thrown around so much.
Networking to me is being able. It's a two-way relationship. Okay, it's having people that could potentially assist you, in either in your personal or your business life moving forward, and not necessarily just now. Okay, and a lot of people make the mistake. They go out networking and that, and it's like, well, how can you help me? Well, that's not what it's about. How can you help them first? Build a relationship, I built relationships that I haven't cashed in on in 10 years, 5 years, But I've got relationships with people that I know that if I ever went into that industry or if I did something there, I can pull this person. So it's not always about what you can get out of it. And that's where South Africans' mentality is very different to when you're looking at like European, like a Western European or even American mentality. Is they build networks for the connections and saying, well, if I ever need someone who can do this, trade and investments, then I've got this person. If I need someone who's specialist in money, there's someone there, etc. And it's building that network. It's not always about what you can get out of it now. I go to too many networking events and people come to me and they pitch you straight away, because as soon as they know that you're an investor and you're a successful entrepreneur, they're pitching you because they want your business or they want investment in that. The first thing they do is like, okay, so this is what my product is. When can we set up a meeting? I want to tell you about it, and maybe you can get it into your company. Well, you're going about it completely wrong. First build a relationship with me. Who the hell are you? What can you do for me first? If you want this relationship, what can you do for me? And it might be something stupid. It's not always about buying products or services and that. Build that repertoire. I always made a point of everyone that I built a network with is I helped them first. And it wasn't always immediately. It was sometime in the future and that. But I always made a point of building that relationship, building credibility, because now they know I can deliver, etc. And then they're not scared to refer you. Hence the reason I get so much business from referrals is because people, I've helped them. And they just, well, I've got this other person who can help you, etc. And the network just expands exponentially and just grows and grows and grows.
So it's the key part then of networking is then building relationships, and part of that is not looking, what's in it for.
Don't be selfish.
For you.
It's not just
like,
about
what can I contribute.
It's a two-way street. And remember, it's equivalent value. If I'm going to give you a bar one, you're not going to give me a car, right? You got to balance it out, and that's where obviously integrity and values and stuff comes in. But it's about personalities. It's understanding personalities. I mean, networking is very hard. It's not actually that easy. You don't just go to someone and pitch, this is who I am. You got to be able to read people. You need to interact with them. You got to build that relationship. Now, how do you build that relationship? Well, that's the hard part, right? Can you read the body language? What is his body language saying to you? Is he busy now? Is he tired? Is he keen? Is he interested? Based on what you're saying, what's his eye movement saying? Is he interested in what you're saying? Is he being distracted? If he's being distracted, what do you need to change in the context of what you're saying to get him interested? So you've got to learn all of those different attributes, to understand how to network effectively, keep people engaged all the time.
Okay, so you've explained a bit about what not to do. In other words, you don't open your mouth and say, hi, can I pitch my product?
Yeah.
So how do you go about then if you go to a networking event? What would be your starting point? Because that's what people often just stand there with their drink and they don't know what to do. So what do you do that allows you to
tend to be more like
a
social networker. In the sense, I go to a lot of events and that, and the only time I ever network, I make sure, I often don't even sit in the actual classes that they have in that. I'm sort of walking the floors and then seeing, is there someone, I read their body language, I read the eye movement, I try to get a gauge of the kind of individual he is. Is he an executive? Is he a...
So you have started a conversation in order to do that?
No. So I'm reading all of that based on his movement, his confidence. So I normally, right in the beginning when I start off, I sort of stand in the corner and I watch everyone and I sort of identify. You can identify who are executives and who are employees. Okay, you can see who's entrepreneurs, you can see who's successful, who's failure, you can see who's going through a good time, who's going through a bad time. You can pick that kind of stuff up. And by picking that up, eventually when I've identified the kind of people that I want to speak to, it's quite literally walking up, "Hi, how's it, man? Dennis, how's it going? How are you enjoying this stuff? Cool. Okay, cool. I'll catch up later." And I'd duck off. And I'd catch up with him later again, and I'd walk into him again, "Oh, are you enjoying this?" And, it might be cracking a few jokes or whatever, but it's very much more on a social aspect. No business is discussed. Eventually it gets to a stage after you've seen each other the second time. And third time, he broaches a question. Because remember, you've got to get him to ask you, rather than you telling him. He's like, "So what is it you do, Dennis? "Oh, no, dude, I'm an entrepreneur. I run a few businesses, and this is what I do." Whatever my pitch is, at that stage, or about who I am as an individual, or whatever the case is. And I'm like, "So what do you do?" "No, I do this, and etc." And, "Oh, that's pretty cool, man. Actually, I should introduce you to this other guy that I met earlier." And I inevitably end up doing that. I'm introducing people at the events. And I'm like, lobbyist never quits, right? So, you chat to this guy. He's also actually in that industry. And then they end up chatting and that. And they're so thankful that I've done the introduction and that I'm always the one who gets included in the emails between them and that kind of stuff. So, and I always get referrals from that. So I follow a very more social, casual kind of networking rather than, "Hi, listen, I'd like to introduce myself. This is the business that I've got," etc.
So it's building that relationship on who the person is, not
when you're
what
standing
they
in
do.
that queue to go get that coffee or that cool drink and that, if you aren't networking there, because inevitably those queues are slow, there's always some funny crap that's happening somewhere down the line, in that. If you're not cracking jokes or having a discussion with someone around you, then you're never going to be successful in networking. You need to be able to talk in that kind of line. I could stand in a line at Woolworths. I'm standing in the queue. I can guarantee you, I've spoken to the person in front of me, I've spoken to the person behind me, and I've cracked the joke that the cashier is probably laughing at me. Okay, so but I've got that personality where I like to, but it's also not natural necessarily. It's something I do enhance, to get that reaction out of people. But as having been a hostage negotiator in that, you learn body language, you learn handwriting analysis, you learn a lot of different psychological telltale signs of who people are. How do you read them? Are they interested in talking to you or not? It's being able to gauge it. A lot of time I can look at someone and say, "That guy's tired, I'm not going to speak to him now." I've even had it when I've been in sales. I walk into a CEO's office, we're about to pitch a solution. It's about a 10-bar solution. And as I walked in, I could see he's had a rough night. And no one else saw that. And I walked up to him and I said to him, "Rob, listen, mate, I can see you're not quite in the mood for this. I'll tell you what, breakfast on you next week Tuesday. We'll discuss this." He's like, "Dennis, thanks so much." But because you're being able to read that kind of thing and he doesn't have to make excuses or sit through something he doesn't want to, suddenly you've built repertoire.
Yeah.
And we ended up closing the deal. But, it's learning those signs,
Yeah, so, but that for me is an example of what they call empathy. It's putting yourself in that person's shoes and not going just with your own agenda.
You always got to
your agenda would be to sell, but you can realize, hold on, this person's not in the place to hear.
Well, it's like I used to do relationship coaching, and one of the things I say, or one of the things you do is your wife's cross with you, right, or your girlfriend or whatever's cross with you, and you get into an argument. Now, how do you kill that argument straight away? How do you completely remove the what do you call it, the dispute and that, the anger and that? Is empathizing with her. Is how do you making sure that you understand what she's trying to say, and whether that's in a mirroring context or whichever context you want, saying, "Okay, sweetheart, so what you're saying is you don't like it when I leave my socks on the floor and stuff, or whatever the case is, So what you're saying is that, so if I promise I'll pick up my socks and that again, and because you're understanding what she's actually trying to say, and sometimes you got to go below the surface to understand exactly what that is. It's usually something else behind. Yeah, it's usually something else behind it. But by breaking that down and going into that, right, and you're understanding, immediately removes any anger because you've made an effort to try and understand. Now you do the same context when you're networking and that. It's like, well, why are you here? What is it you're trying to gain from? It's not about what I want to gain. That will come. Don't worry. What are you trying to gain out of this? and you'll be more successful in networking. And dispute resolution, for that matter.
Yes, because we're going to probably touch on that, or we are going to touch on that in more coming up. But so just going back to so it's about being empathetic. So I'm trying to see, putting your gender aside.
Yes.
Which for me takes a lot of inner strength, is and understanding that, you know. But part, especially in networking, then this is, you've said a few times, I just want to highlight it, is that it's about having a longer term vision. So understanding that you're not going to make the sale there at that event or whatever it is, but this person may introduce you to someone else, or may be useful for someone else in your network, whatever it is. So it's having that longer term vision that I'm building a relationship, because you got
to build a long term goal. I mean, I've sat in deals where I've known someone for about a year, and then I get to, and I can sell them a solution. Now the solution's about 20 bar solution, but I know that it's not going to be 100% right for him. I can sell it because he will buy it because he trusts me. Okay. Do I sell that solution, which will affect the relationship? Okay. I make 20 million for the company that I was working for at that stage, because I was working for someone at that stage. Funny enough, I wasn't even didn't even have my own business between failures. Or do I maintain that relationship and say, well, I actually don't think it's right? Well, what I did is I maintained the relationship. I said, in the presentation in front of my CEO, then they said, I don't think the solution's right for you. I don't think you guys should be going for this. Obviously, that got me into performance management and all kinds of other things. But down the line, we probably did about 200 million worth of deals through other businesses and other connections. Remember, your relation isn't limited to the company that you're working for. The relationship's with you, not with your company. And you need to realize that any relationships you build now, maintain them, because you don't know what could happen. And it doesn't matter. I'm not saying they all need to be on C level. Okay. You might be speaking to an IT technician or whatever. You never know. He could be the next Elon Musk in 10 years' time, but because you've maintained a relationship with him, he knows you, and you can interact. So don't disregard people. Don't judge people at all. Don't put them in little boxes. Build honest relationships as if they were friends. It's like, how can I help you? And sometimes it's not about helping, and sometimes they want nothing. That's fine too. Leave it. Down the line, someone will want help somewhere.
So one is about building the network relationship, is offering help, so being empathetic, understanding what's going on for that person, and then if you can offer assistance, referring them to someone else, whatever it is offering help. But also, it sounds like them being willing to help them when they do approach you and say their needs.
Well, you need to be willing to help them. However, I always put there's a limit on that, a disclaimer. Okay. Anything I help you with should never compromise me, or my family, okay, or my business, okay. So, and you need to be able to say no, and people generally understand that. I mean, I've had a lot of people say no to me. That's fine, it's. Yeah, a lot of people just aren't used to no, or they don't want to say no because they want to be the good guy. Okay, I'll do it. Then they can't deliver against it, and then their relationship's destroyed anyway. Say, listen, I actually can't do this. I don't have skills. Well, listen, I can't do it. Financially, it's just going to impact me incorrectly. But let me see if I've got someone else in my network who can help you. So there's always a way out. Don't be scared to say no. You don't have to help every single person. I mean, you'll end up being a charity organization. If you did that with every person you knew.
No, and you've got to, look after yourself. Otherwise, you are of no use.
You need to put yourself forward. You need to put yourself first. Okay, it's only when you've helped yourself and you're successful, etc., that you can help others. I mean, you get people that aren't successful. They have no money, but they're constantly trying to help others. But they're never going to be successful if they're doing that. Take that you're trying to help others, invest it in yourself. And it sounds horrible and sounds rude in that. Okay.
The word people often use as selfish.
Yes, and it sounds it sounds like it's not selfish. You need to build yourself up. When you're in a position where now suddenly you're earning 10 million rand a year, okay, and now you can go and help people. How much more could you do, rather than taking that last bit of money, taking from your kids' school fees to pay for someone else's, whatever. It's not going to help you.
Not at all. Okay, so part of networking then is building that relationship, giving first, and that. And you spoke about maintaining relationships. I mean, and you've got an extensive network. How do you juggle all of that? Because there's a lot of energy in relating, and in, you know, you gave the example of the IT guy who could be the next Elon Musk.
You know, there's
it's not about
lots
every
of
day or every week.
It's not about every day
so
and
how
every
do you
week.
manage and remember who's who?
I think, you know, well, social media is a good one. You know, so you know, if you've got your close friends and stuff on certain, you know, on the way you set up your profiles and stuff, and most of these people are on those kind of lists within my, and they see what I'm doing and I'm seeing what they're doing, so we can sort of interact that way. But also, like twice a year, I generally have quite a big brio party at my place, and you know, we generally have like 30 to 100 odd people that pitch up there, and I generally invite just pretty much everyone. Come, bring your kids. You know, we're having fun. You know, it's a socializing. No business is discussed at all. You know, inevitably everyone ends up in networking between themselves.
Yes.
Okay, as they would. But it's maintaining those relationships in that way. Or every now and then, you put in a good post, that's popping a message. I actually quite enjoyed that. That was really funny, you know, or this is my view on it, or whatever the case is. You know, social media is a good way to keep in touch with those kind of people. But also, you know, inviting them to, you know, those, you've got different segments of your network. The very high profiles, or the high net worth, or people that you want close, or whatever the case is. Create some kind of event or something where you can invite them. I've done things like, well, we've got a go-karting day because myself and my mates are doing it. Okay, I'm not paying, so people think, oh no, but this is going to cost me a fortune. Well, actually, everyone's paying for themselves. They bring in their own drinks and they pay for their own stuff. And it's a general invite out. Listen here, guys, we limited 50 people. First 50 comes, and you just say to people inviting, and you've got a whole range of people there, from, you know, from the plumber through to the CEO. We're all racing against each other. And it's not costing anyone anything other than what they would have paid by themselves. So it's not an expensive thing. People, entrepreneurs, people that network tend to think, oh, shit, I've got to go set up an event. It's going to cost me so much for breakfast or that.
Yeah,
no.
it's quite easy.
I go to breakfast with CEOs and it's like, so, you know, and I'll pay one day, he pays the next time. You know, and it's always a two-way street. Sometimes the bill split. Who cares? You know, there's lots of ways to get past that. Remember, you're dealing with people. People, you know, and people deal with people. You're not dealing with someone at this level. You know, don't think of it that way. As soon as you're thinking of it that way, you've put him on a pedestal, or him or her on a pedestal, and you're not going to be able to network. And he's going to realize that, and he's going to treat you like you're below. Treat them on the same level. No matter if they're the janitor or the CEO. If you treat everyone on the same level, you'll network, and you'll build amazing relationships.
Sure, yeah. What else did I have to ask you around that then?
Sorry, did I answer too much?
No, you've answered like so much, and it's because one of the questions was again, what do you believe are people that allowed you to have such a range? Everything from, because I know you've got royalty in your network, government officials. You know, you have a strong bond with your daughter, and as you say, the plumbers and that. But I think you answered it. It's just treating people as people.
Yeah, treating people as people in that, and you know, it's. You know, I've dealt with a lot of royal families, and I've dealt on presidential level and ambassadorial level in a lot of countries, and quite frankly, it's just because I'm me. You know, I'm myself. I don't put up pretenses about who I am or what I have, etc. This is who I am, and people love that genuineness and people know. Make no mistake, every person knows when someone's being genuine or not. Okay, and when you've been genuine, it's like, I like this guy. He's actually exposed himself or herself to me, and you immediately connect. I don't know, you have a bond, you know. But when there's that pretense, I know, listen, I'm the CEO, you know, of ABC company, you know what, you're putting yourself on what are you trying to compete with the person you're networking with? Because that's how it comes across psychologically, you know, subconsciously. It's like, oh, so you can compete. So immediately they're like, yeah, I also used to be a CEO, but then I retired for millions, you know, kind of, you know, it's that kind of thing. You know, you're going to get into that battle, you know. Why get into that? This is what I do. Oh, we're going skiing the weekend. You're keen to join us, you know. You like skiing, you know, what is it you like? You know, that kind of stuff. Learn the interests. Bearing in mind, the reason the lobbyists were so valuable and sold for so much was the database of information we had on people. We understood what you liked, you know. We understood who your kids were, their ages, what they liked, you know. you know, if we were sitting at a restaurant, I would know exactly what kind of drink your favorite drink is, you know. I would know your dislikes. I'd know in terms of your personality, what are your positive attributes, what are your negative attributes. You understand? In terms of your color coding, what do you wear, what do you don't wear, you know, that kind of stuff. So you really learn to analyze people and put all of that information together. And we had all of that information, which made it easy for people, even though I might have had a relationship with one person, for someone else within my company to go and contact them, because they knew this information, they could easily build that connection like in a matter of seconds, rather than go through the whole several months process that I did initially, you know, kind of thing, and vice versa.
So, I forgot what the question was, but Susanna, with the business, obviously you had a way of tracking, a database then that someone else could pick up that information. Yes.
And understanding their relationships to other people and stuff like that, yes. What businesses did you own? What connection do you have to this person? You know, is it a strong connection? Like, what is your win in that? Because what you don't realize is in a lot of networking and that, or when you get to negotiation stages and that, is there's always a personal win. It's not always a business win. There is a business win always, but there's always a personal win too. Where's that person's personal win? You know, so if you go to pitch this idea, how would that affect him personally? Will it make her look good in front of her boss? Because that might be a personal win. Or she might get a salary increase from this, which is going to allow her to take her kids to Disneyland. What's the personal win? And once you understand that, means when you get to that level of understanding people, okay, that's when you're a professional networker, that you can close deals. You can pretty much pitch anything you want and people will buy it.
But to get to that, so to get to a person to open up to you and trust you with that kind of information, you have to be real.
You got to be real,
authentic,
100%.
And be willing to show yourself. And
people are scared to expose themselves. Okay, so if you were the first one to expose yourself, would you not expose? If I expose myself to you, would you not expose yourself to me?
It makes it much easier.
You know. But yeah, it does, because he's been honest with me. He's exposed something that he's trusting me with that information. I feel honored. You know, I'm going to trust him with a piece of information. And as the relationship progresses, it's more and more and more stuff that you start trusting each other with. And you know, and that's how I built my network. It was based on that. But also, when I said I would deliver something, I delivered something. So there's a lot of things, you know, within a relationship. Okay. It's the love and the passion for what you do, okay? Honesty, trust, commitment, compromise, loyalty, respect, and communication. It's the 8 pillars, okay? Without those 8 pillars, you cannot maintain a relationship. Now, whether that's with a wife or girlfriend, okay, or it's with a client, you know, they want to see, well, do you have the passion and commitment, you know? Are you an honest person? Are you loyal, you know? Communication. You know, do you have good communication skills? Can you speak to me properly? Commitment. You know, are you committed to this relationship? No, whether it's a business relationship or personal, it doesn't matter. Are you committed to my company or to me? You know, compromise. Are you willing to compromise? And that, bear in mind, it's all two-way street, because you need to get all 8 things back into respect. You know, that kind of stuff. And those are basic pillars. And if you don't have all 8 of those, you can't have 4 of the 8. You need all 8. Think of it as spokes of a wheel. You got 8 spokes. If you had to go rate your relationships in each one of those categories, with 0 being in the middle and 10 on the outside, and you marked it off, and you said, well, in terms of passion, it's a 6. In terms of honesty, it's a 5, etc. And you connect those dots. That's your wheel of that relationship. And that's how it's going to flow. Now go look and say, well, if you could improve this, what does he or she need to do to improve this? And what do I need to do to improve it? And you rate it. And you see what you need to do to fix that relationship so you can build a strong relationship. And that's what it's about. If you're not doing that, then you're going to end up, you're really flying by the seat of your pants on that. Bearing in mind, this stuff ends up coming very naturally. You know, I mean, you'll go look at it once and that, and a lot of people just have the knack for it. You know, personally, I just had the knack for it in terms of, I understood this. This is, you know, what I needed to do to influence people, you know. My exes called it a manipulation. I called it influence.
It comes down to your perspective.
Yeah, exactly. You know, so.
So it's a key part of of relationships is being able to like communicate, but to me it's having the really important conversations that are usually the more difficult ones to have. You know, we touched a little bit earlier on in terms of arguments you were talking about, but what is that then? What advice would you give for someone who finds it so difficult to deal with conflict? Because for me, conflict is where you actually get to the heart of the matter, so that you can build the trust and understanding of the person, and hopefully resolve the issue and come out where there's a compromise, you know, but you move forward from it if you're willing to engage and go there and have that tough conversation. So what advice would you give someone who literally runs away from conflict and confrontation and won't engage?
Remove the conflict out of it. I mean, if someone's angry with you, or, you know, your boss or your partner or whatever the case is, or client might be angry with you, you need to first remove the anger aspect of that conflict. In other words, the animosity and all of that kind of stuff. You know, just I'm frustrated with you, I don't want to see you, that kind of stuff. In order to do that, you need to understand where they're coming from. Okay, and again, you need to emphasize. Empathize with them. We touched on it earlier. And then once you empathize with them, in terms of, okay, this is what I just want to understand. This is what you're saying. You know, I don't want to argue with you. Now, don't argue. It doesn't matter. Remember, you're mirroring what they're thinking. Okay? It's not about your perspective on that. You right now, that will come. Right now, you need to focus on understanding what they're trying to say. Now, generally, when you're repeating what they've said, they'll say to you, that's not what I meant. Now, 9 out of 10 times, most people say, actually, that's not what I meant. What I meant was X, Y, Z. And then, inevitably, either they realize that they've made a mistake, which then diffuses the situation, or by you understanding the actual situation, diffuses it automatically. Okay, and then you can say, okay, and then it's the way you approach it, because now there's no conflict anymore. Because now you understand, you remove the anger part. You still disagree, okay?
Yeah, but the person feels hurt, is what I said.
But the person feels hurt, exactly. You know, so now someone who doesn't like conflict is now feeling comfortable, and you say, okay. So what if you consider, I understand your perspective, now, what if you consider this perspective? What do you think? You know? And remember, at the end of the day, it's plan A, plan B, and together plan C. You know, one of the three are going to work, you know? And if we bring in someone else's plan, D, E, F, we've got the rest of the alphabet to go, right? So the only way to diffuse a situation or deal with conflict is to understand what the person is trying to say. What are they trying to get across? Because remember, people only get angry when you don't understand what they're trying to say. That's when people get angry, right?
Yeah.
You know, in communication context.
You don't understand what I'm trying to say, so what's the point of even talking?
Exactly. So try and give them time to speak. Do not interrupt. Too often you got this urge, I want to tell her that she's full of crap, you know? Well, actually, she is completely out of there. And you know what? She might be completely wrong, but you don't have to say that. You know? Just understand what he or she is trying to tell you. And once you've understood that, you've already removed the anger aspect. Now it's just to deal with the solution. Now it's like, okay, so let's play with solutions. You've got solution A, I've got solution B. Let's come up with solution C together. What's the compromise in that? And if someone's not willing to compromise on those things, those 8 pillars I spoke about, you're already in trouble in terms of a relationship and that. It's not sustainable. Okay, so...
Okay, so listening then, because we haven't even used that word listening, but from what I'm
it's not listening, it's hearing.
It's hearing.
Okay, because everyone listens, but are you actually hearing what that person's trying to tell you? And the best test is someone tells you something about you, right? Get someone to tell you something about you, okay? Then repeat what they said, okay? I can guarantee you, 90% of the time, you're going to get it wrong, what they were saying. They're going to say, no, that's not what I said. This is what I said. You understand? Because you were listening, you weren't hearing. By hearing, you understand every word that they've actually said. What do they mean? In other words, it's not just what's coming out of their mouths, but what their body language is saying to you too. You know? Do you understand the context of what they're saying?
And there, for me, it's also active. You can ask questions then to make sure you're understanding. It's
Again,
not just being quiet.
Let them finish, then ask the questions and let them answer. Okay, and don't structure your questions in a sarcastic way. Okay, or in a way that it's to tell them they're wrong. Because there's a lot of people like to do that. It's like, okay, so you actually mean that this, and that, right? Well, no,
No, 'cause then you
you don't
haven't
do
heard.
that, okay? Ask genuine questions. And again, open yourself up. You understand? And, once you've opened yourself up, that person's connecting with you immediately because you've exposed yourself. They don't want to hurt you because you've exposed yourself to them. So, work on that. There's a lot of, tricks of the trade that you could use. I mean, I look at, my ex-relationships and stuff. We never ever had argument. The only argument used to be is because they couldn't fight with me. It was so frustrating because they would have an argument. They'd go off. I'd have a discussion with her, exactly like I'm saying now. And at the end of it, she stands up. And the problem solved, that. And then as she walks away, she's like, "Oh damn it, this person can't even fight with you," kind of thing. But you want to get to that stage, where you can diffuse a situation.
And I actually talk about that as being learning how to argue. You mean
Yes.
positive confrontation is that I think we have this perception, being conditioned through, if you look at movies and from poor parenting or poor examples around us, that arguing is screaming and shouting and storming off and slamming doors.
Yes.
It's not that arguing is actually about understanding each other and then coming up with from that better understanding, growth that leads you to go forward.
Once you also realize that every person's different, okay? Every person's got a different opinion. There is no one way to do something, okay? There are tens and thousands and hundreds of millions of ways to do something. Just because this is your way doesn't mean it's the right way, okay?
Or the only
Understand that is the goal the same? Is the end result the same? Because if the end result is the same, does it really matter the process at the end of the day? Is it that important to you? Unless if you're OCD, then you want things I want it in this way, I want the sugar in first before the coffee, not the coffee first and then the sugar, kind of thing. So, just try and understand what the person's doing, and be the bigger person.
And that kind of leads.
And don't rub it in. So, in other words, remember, you're always the one. If you need to, also if you're wrong, don't be scared to say sorry. I'm not one of those persons. If I've messed up, and I'll go and I'll say, guys, listen, I'm sorry. I messed up. People are scared to say sorry. They're embarrassed. I'm not embarrassed at all. And you know what? I say I'm sorry all the time for different things that I made mistakes on or whatever the case is. People are, thanks, Dennis. Cool, man. I've never had anyone look down at me for that. Well, not that I know of, but.
But then, so that kind of touches then on failure, because I think when we say sorry, we think we're admitting or accepting failure or whatever.
You're acknowledging that you just simply didn't do something the right way. Okay.
According to that person also.
Yeah, according to that person's perspective.
Yeah.
It might not be your perspective in that, but I'm also not saying don't go say sorry if you don't mean it. If it ain't coming, if it's not genuine, do not say it, because people know immediately. I mean, if you tell me, even yourself, when someone says sorry to you, you know exactly if they meant it or not, right? Because it's depending. If they've opened up and they're saying sorry, then it's genuine. If they haven't, then it's really just, cosmetics at the end of the day. So, yeah. But in terms of failure in that, I mean, people often look at failure as the end of their lives. It's the end of all. Change that mindset. It's a stepping stone. What did you learn? When something's happened, well, what did you learn? You broke up with your boyfriend. Okay, so you've learned what you don't want, right? Okay, so make a list of those things. And what do you want? I want this. Suddenly it's not that bad anymore. You understand? Oh, you failed in business. Okay, well, what caused the failure? Dissect it. Understand, what have you learned from this? Well, how are you going to do those differently next? No, this and this. I'm actually going to bring in an accountant this time who's going to work in the company. I'm not going to outsource or whatever the case is. And this is how I'm going to solve that problem. Now, suddenly it's not a failure anymore in your mind because you've already swapped it over to a learning curve. Now, the more you do that, suddenly failure doesn't even play. With me, there's no such thing as failure. It's like, okay, so I've learned a new way of doing something. So Thomas Edison failed 10,000 times in doing the light bulb. You think he beat himself up and went to go cry in a corner every single time? We've all been there, okay? We all get despondent and we sit there and we want to cry our eyes out. I mean, I've been there. I've done that, But it's getting up and it's just like saying, it was me getting up, looking in the mirror and saying, F you, Dennis, get up, focus, write your stuff down. let's move on, kind of thing. And having friends tell me the exact same thing, so that's, you get different strokes.
No, but it is just turning failure into learning. So just to touch base, we spoke a bit about conflict and that, but when you were saying my solution, your solution, there's solution C. That kind of leads then into negotiation. You've negotiated not only $1 billion deals, but you said the hostage situations. So it was really interesting because that's quite a range of negotiation skills.
Well, yeah, I studied hostage negotiation many, many years ago. Okay, and actually the reason for studying the hostage negotiation, I wanted to be better at sales. Because I believe that if you studied hostage negotiation, because it consists of body language and everything else, a handwriting analysis, all of how to influence people, all of that kind of stuff, it's going to make me better in sales. And true as Bob, my close rate, and I had a high close rate, it was 41% close rate. My close rate went up to 86%. Because I was able to read people properly. I could tell when someone was lying. If someone talks to me and they lie, I read it straight away. Understanding the different expressions, the lines, the eyes, the body language, all of those things. So it has helped me a lot in terms of business. That's probably been one of my most powerful attributes in business, funny enough.
But so that, in particular in terms of negotiation in hostage situations, just gave you the skills of, you were saying, reading
and it's
people.
very different. It's very different because I've also seen two different aspects of people, different sides of people. I've seen the animalistic side of someone, that kills at will, kills children and stuff like that. I've seen that. I've been in war zones, versus that of a CEO or a girlfriend, or negotiating with your domestic, which is often somewhere in the middle, So I've dealt on the extremes in terms of negotiating, and I've seen the different personalities out there, and I think it's given me an edge. But it's also because I've seen the animalistic side that I appreciate what I have when I'm negotiating on the business side, because it's just so much easier than trying to do that. People don't realize how hard it is to do hostage negotiation versus a business negotiation. People focus on this is so stressful. Well, you try and explain to someone that he needs to release people because he's never going to get money. And there's only two ways out here. He's either with a bullet, he's going to get a bullet, or he's going to end up in jail for 20 years, which there's not really a win for him at the end of the day, kind of thing. So, it's a very different ball game.
So what do you believe then about negotiation that allows you to be so successful? And obviously, not many people get to engage, or thank goodness, with the hostage side. But in terms of business and relationships, your domestic, your
again, it's completely understanding what they want. What do they really want? What is
their personal win?
What is their personal win? What is that personal win? When a CEO is negotiating a $50 million deal with you, what's the personal win for the people making that decision? Each person will have a different win. There's the business win. Yes, the business will be increase profits, reduce operation expenses, increase productivity, standard three things, right? Standard pitch. But what's the personal win for these people? What are they going to get a personal relationship? Sometimes the personal win is Dennis is going to be here all the time, and we've got this relationship with him, or whatever the case. It doesn't matter what it is, but it's understanding what people really want and their wins, and also empathizing with them. Do I really understand what your issue is when you're doing hostage or with a domestic? Do you understand what the issue is, really? Maybe it's a sick child at home, or maybe she spent 3 hours in a taxi trying to get to you this morning because there was rain or something. You don't know. You're making assumptions the whole time, and our biggest mistake we make as individuals when we try and negotiate and communicate with people is we assume too much. We assume that they live the same kind of lives that we live. So if you've had a bad day and you're in a bad mood, you're going to assume they're in a bad mood and you're going to have a go at them. So your communication is going to change in terms of that. But what if someone in their family had died, or whatever? Or what if her sister gave birth this morning? Two different extremes on that. You don't understand that. You haven't asked. You haven't opened yourself up. She hasn't opened up to you. So How are you going to understand that? How are you going to effectively communicate, and how are you going to effectively negotiate?
So it all starts with understanding.
Yeah, understanding and hearing. You know, hear what they want.
Sure. So the one other part, and we touched on earlier, I think in terms of the networking night, is you speak about your success has been not in selling your business, but in selling yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that touches on being real and authentic and building the relationship and not talking business straight away, but actually getting to understand the person in front of you.
I focus on the relationships, but you know, my strategy is always long term. You know, I want this person, because I know that I might have a company now and I'll probably end up selling it, and I'm going to have another company and I still want to do business with this person. You know, so you need to ask yourself, is this person for a once-off win, or is it a long-term relationship? Okay, and work on, depending on your strategy. Sometimes it is just a once-off win. You know, okay, I need to sell some books. I'm at a bookstore. I need to sell some books, or whatever the case is. Okay, well then it's a quick win. You're not going to build relationships there, so there's a different technique in that. But yeah, my focus has always been building on the relationships, you know? Focus on the relationships.
And is that then how you believe you sell yourself?
Yes, and I sell myself, who I am. People buy people, they don't buy products or services. What makes your product really different? So you're going to sell me a kettle, or you're going to sell me a business intelligence solution, or an ERP solution, or you're going to sell me a gold bracelet, or whatever. Well, I could probably get that from about 10,000 other suppliers, anywhere else, and probably cheaper. About 6 of them probably give it to me cheaper. So why would I buy it from you? Really, if it wasn't for you as an individual, right? And that's why people buy. That's the psychology behind, you know, one-on-one sales. People buy from people. So if you don't have the personality, when you think about it, if a guy at the traffic light comes to you and he's trying to sell you something, and he just doesn't have the personality, it's like, yeah, he shoves this thing in front of you, you're going to buy it. No, you don't buy it. But the guy that comes to you, and he's chatting to you, and he's interacting with you, you're sort of like, well, I would like to buy it. You don't necessarily buy it, but you've already taken 2 steps forward from the previous one, right? Now imagine you had actually built the relationships completely. Would you have bought the thing? Yes.
More likely.
Exactly.
Definitely when you have a choice between the two. So selling yourself.
And the thing is, because in today's day and age, we know how easy it is to get products and services pretty much anywhere.
Yeah.
You Google something, I can find it.
Yeah.
So you want to sell me a Samsung phone? Okay, well, let me Google it and let me see what these things cost. I could probably get it off Gumtree cheaper than what you're going to provide it. And even though you're my friend, that's what I would end up doing, because people are educated now, and they've got a lot of information available, you know, with technology. So don't assume that your product is the best. Your product is not the best. I can guarantee you. Every salesperson thinks their product's the best. Rubbish. You say that, and then you move to the competitor and you say the same things. Okay? So it's not that. People buy from people. Build the relationships, and build long-term relationships. Because then, when you go and decide to start your own company, or grow your company, or start a new company, or whatever the case is, or even move to a job, you want another job, or whatever, your network can help you, connect you to the right people. Use that.
Great. So how can people get hold of you? I know right now you do a lot of mentoring. So you can just tell us a bit about that.
People can go to the 101biz.co.za website, just complete the contact form, or alternatively they can email me on Denis, it's DENIS at 101biz.co.za. Alternatively, they can look me up on Facebook. It's Denis Fourie.
Great, and that's for not only a lot of articles, information around business stuff, but also
if they're interested in connecting as well, you know, you can find me on LinkedIn. Yeah, we're always open to some networking. You know, you never know. So you know, there's always opportunity. So you know, let's have a chat, and you know, I'm quite accessible.
Great. And then just to end off, I talk about like this show is about having the conversations that count. So I wanted to just ask you is, what for you is a conversation that has counted in your life? If you were to share that story.
Just like it. That's really, how long is a piece of string, eh? Conversations.
There's usually many, but
counted.
maybe is there, even if it's just a type of conversation that you feel is really, that counts, that you would seek out, or has there been one that for you, you're like, thank goodness I had that type of conversation?
geez, there are so many. I think because I did the hostage negotiations and stuff, it's a bit of a different context for me, because the conversations that counted were those, with people, holding hostages and that, it was dealing with those kind of situations to, stop killings and stop destruction and stuff like that. So those are really I'd say the biggest conversation. That, and then obviously my discussions with my daughter and that. She's probably the only person I can't negotiate with. She'll just look at me and just say, Dad, I'm just going to bat my eyelids, I'm going to get what I want, we can go through the whole negotiation thing and I'm still going to get what I want. Let's not waste time. So
she knows how to negotiate with you.
She knows how to negotiate with me, yes. So, but yeah, I think one of the most interesting discussions is obviously when we discuss innovation and stuff with my daughter, coming up with new ideas of doing things, and just, we should never underestimate children and the view they put on things. Because remember, they're not restricted in any way yet.
Yeah.
They still believe everything is possible. Look at that. When you want advice on your product or your business, and that, if you can't explain it to a 10-year-old, you're not going to sell that easily. Okay, and get their input on stuff. I don't know. I enjoy those conversations. If I say my most interesting conversations ever has probably been with kids and stuff. I also mentor a few kids, funny enough, and it's getting their perspective on things in the world. It just gives you a whole new look at what's important, what's truly important.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I'm Talana, and this has been Let's Talk Communication. To find out more about my guest, Denis Fourie, please have a look at his profile on my blog. And also, if you'd like to know more about his entrepreneurial journey and his views on entrepreneurship, have a look at my other show, Let's Talk Possibility, that I did with Denis. So you can find all the details on talkcommunication.innercoaching.co.za, or you can tweet me at Talana. So until next time, be real.